My void will consume you, if you ask nicely.
Your will is no longer your own.
Stay away from the voodoo. Toi!
You have led the Horde to a place without honor.
Your petty quarrels only make me stronger.
Our world needs us, champion.
You got it over your head.
We cannot let the world fall to darkness.
Already lost.
Put your faith in the light, and all is possible.
Is it truly righteousness that drives you? I wonder.
It would seem you have guessed.
They are coming for you. This is the Whispers of Whispers.
Hello everyone and welcome to Whispers of War, show number 70. I'm your host, Sil. I'm not sounding my usual self, I think don't tweak your sound settings. It's not your device, it's definitely me. I have a little bit of a cold going on, so I sound a little bit more husky than normal, or I just sound sick. But I did manage to get some WoW time in, so let's just jump into that. Still no classic, because, you know, 8.3 has rolled out, so that is taking up all of my time, and boy am I confused. I need to watch a few more videos, I think, online about everything regarding 8.3, just because I feel a little bit lost. There's a lot of stuff that you can do, and I know you get introductionary quests, but I see other people say, oh, you need to do this, you need to do the visions, kill just the first boss or the end boss, and I'm like, where, what, how? So it's a little bit overwhelming at times. I think the fact that I'm sick doesn't help either, because my brain is just, you know, I'm not a sponge at all. I hear something and it just seeps out somewhere to be forgotten. So the only real thing that I did is, you know, start the quest. So Rathian, love the cinematic, is all I can say. I really love the cinematic. I love it that Rathian is back. I love the intro quests to get the cloak and everything. But it is very busy in the Heart Chamber, I have to say. I think maybe it would have been nicer if it would be instanced, if that makes sense. Just because you get more of a feeling of, oh yeah, it's just me doing this, but I don't know. I guess we're all champions, really, for the game. So that's that. I also unlocked Mechanomes and Volpera. I wanted to unlock those just because that's the completionist in me. I just thought, can't bear to look at those grey things. I need to have those. And of course, after unlocking them, I had to create them as well. I love the Volpera, but I know I would. I knew I would really like them. It's a shame that they don't get hairstyles, even if it's just very subtle, because even Worgen have a little bit of hairstyles, but Volpera don't. Because I don't really care about the snouts. I go for the standard snout that's like the first ones or something, because the rest just look a bit weird to me. Very cute. Very cute. I made a Volpera Shaman because I think I thought the totems were adorable. So yeah, I'm one of those people. Love the intro quest and everything on that, and just the little cinematics. And I am really surprised with how much I'm digging the Mechanomes, because this is no offense to anyone who plays gnomes. I have one myself, but I only have one compared to the other races, just because I think they're a little bit too short for me to play. That's more of a... I like the bigger races because, I don't know, I'm short in real life, you know. It's nice to be taller than 5 foot something. So for me, that's just the reason why I prefer to play taller races. But I think these Mechanomes are actually really, really cool, because I think, especially, I didn't roll a male, but for the female Mechanomes have amazing hairstyles. They have all these amazing updos that I really wish we could get on the other races, because they look amazing. You really get that kind of like Victorian or even like a bit of like 50s kind of hairstyle, and I like that. I really think it's cool, and I'm sure it has to do with the steampunk part of it. So yeah, I made a monk because, you know, extremes. So yeah, really happy with that. I did not roll a Death Knight Pandaren just yet, but I don't have a Death Knight on the Horde side, so I might have to. Now. I do need to anyway, because I want to see the new intro video for that. Because I've heard that's all different, so of course I have to check that out. And that's really it. That's all I really did. I think I might want to level a little bit with my friend who just came back to the game, so welcome back, Fa. To, I don't know, maybe level something low. I'm even debating maybe finally finishing my Colteran Druid. Even though I always said I'm not playing Druid ever again, I might just jump back into it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm very tempted by either Shaman, Druid, or Paladin. Don't know why, but those are the 3 classes that really just appeal to me at the moment. And then of course there's my Rogue, who did all the quests, like I said, up until the Cloak. I went to Oldham and I went to the Vale. Now, it might be me, but my god, is she squishy. She's very squishy with some of the new mobs and the new quests that you have to do. I have to sap a lot to make sure that I don't get overwhelmed at times. And things hit fucking hard. And I don't know if that's because I have corrupted gear, and that's why all of a sudden my health drops really quickly. I'll be honest, I have not really looked into everything. So sometimes it's just, yeah, gear, okay, yeah, what do I have to do? I have to kill something, okay, and yeah, I don't know. Like I said, sometimes it gets overly complicated with all the new stuff that's in there, and I'm not quite sure if I'm enjoying all of it at once, but that could just also be me just not grasping it at the moment with my current state of mind. Other than that, I think it's a cool patch. I really am enjoying the darker stuff. I like the anything that has to do with the old gods, because it feels very Lovecraftian, and that is something I really, really dig. Like, I loved it when you had to go into... I do not think it's actually Nyalota, but you know what I mean? That you had to go to the Shadow Realm, or whatever the fuck it was, and you have to make sure that you don't get your insanity depleted in time to investigate some stuff. That was actually really cool. It gave me such a vibe of being in like a Lovecraft story. So that's something I really, really enjoy. And seeing Rathian in his dragon form is really cool as well. Even though I think that his mouth is really big, but that might just be dragons overall in World of Warcraft. I'm like, I know dragons are supposed to have big mouths, but wow, that's like a Joker smile. Just maybe too far, I don't know. Yeah. No, I'm enjoying it so far. I think I need to process a lot of things still. So I'm just going to, the best way to do that is just scour YouTube for some easy tutorials who tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, and that's what I'm going to do. In regards to the heritage gear for Worgen and goblins, I started the one on the goblin, but I figured, okay, I'm too tired. I don't need to start that at 10 o'clock in the evening. I'll finish that another time. The Worgen, I was really like, where's the emissary? Where's the emissary from request? Then I realized I'm not exalted yet on my Worgen, so I might have to, might have to do that first. Surprisingly so, there's a lot of sales going on at the moment. I saw that you can race change and you can faction change, I think. Those were on sale. I was actually hoping that they would also have the sale for realm transfers, because I want some of my old characters all to my current server, which is Argent Dawn, but that has not happened, unfortunately. And I'm not willing to pay the full whack for it. No way. So yeah. And of course, a little surprise, I got Squeakers, which is the rat mount that you get if you sub for 6 months. You get a little flying rat, and it's completely adorable. In the beginning I thought, well, why would I need another rat mount? But this one flies. And actually the special animation when you press spacebar, when it just sits on the ground, is adorable. And I love the tiny wings. I really like the tiny wings and the squeak it makes when you summon it. So yeah, I'm sold. That's my favorite mount. Now, I don't give a shit if people spit on it because they are like, oh, you know, for money and gold, blah, blah, blah. I don't give a flying fuck because I love this mount. I sub for 6 months anyway, so I think it's great that I'm getting something for free in that sense. So, yeah, all the haters can hate me all they want. I love it. Right, I'm going to leave you with an interview I had with the lovely Jordrend. I had the interview like several weeks ago. I was going to put the show out a week ago, but then, you know, in real life happened. Thank you again for all your kind messages. He is, I guess, on the mend. It sounds a bit weird to say that. My boyfriend is still in hospital. They still don't know what the hell is going on, so that's always great to hear. But they managed to suppress the pain a lot with the painkillers. I'm sure it's horse tranquilizer or something like that. But it would be nice if they figure out what the hell is going on, so he can just come back home after that, or they, you know, fix him already. But thank you for understanding, I really appreciate it. And yeah, I just had to take a week off because it's very, very hectic. It's probably also one of the reasons why I'm sick now, because I'm the kind of person who stresses about everything and then my immune system goes bye-bye and I get sick. So it's the worst possible timing. Anyhow, interview. I'll leave you with the lovely Jordrend and then I'll be back afterwards with what you guys said about 8.3 on Twitter. And with me today, I'm being joined by someone who's been here a very long time ago. I can't really remember, but it must have been one of the first shows. Welcome back, Jordrend.
Hello, good to be back.
It's been a very long time, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been, I think, I'd say probably a year and a bit, if I'd reckon.
Wow, that is a long time. All right, well, let's refresh everyone's memory. Can you tell the listeners a bit about yourself?
Yes, hello, I am a World of Warcraft player, obviously. I joined in Legion. I could probably actually, compared to my introduction a year ago, I could probably say some new stuff, because since then I've done a lot. Mm-hmm. I am the former co-GM of a guild on Emerald Dream called Elves of the North. I am the former GM of a guild in WoW Classic Robulus called Emerald Alliance. I'm a dedicated RPer. I'm in the raiding guild Blame It on Lag on Sargeras, and the role-playing guild Guardians of the Throne on Moonguard, and I have a YouTube channel, Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter. YouTube channel, I'll upload every now and then, WoW videos sometimes, and yeah, I think that's the gist of it.
Okay, so what would you say is your faction nowadays? Is it Horde or is it Alliance?
I've always been staunchly Alliance. As much as I do have one character, my mage, who is Horde, because I want to experience both sides of the story. Most of my characters are Alliance. All the alts I plan to level are Alliance, because I want to have all my characters in one faction. But I just really like the Alliance much more than the Horde. In terms of the fact that my main character, the first one I played was Alliance. I generally like the look of Alliance more. I am not a fan of Orgrimmar. I'm not a big fan of going into Orgrimmar as a city when I'm oh, I'm going to my capital city. Oh, it's Orgrimmar. Whenever I'm on my mage. But Stormwind, I like Stormwind quite a lot. And genuinely, from a story perspective, I've always preferred the Alliance, because I like the simplicity of the Alliance are, just, they're good boys, Where you get to the Horde and you have, Sylvanish, Garrosh, you get stuff like that, which I genuinely think it's interesting, which is why I still like to experience that story. But I do like the simplicity of the Alliance and, good kings like Anduin and stuff. Though I do like the Ganon stuff, Tyrande, and that kind of stuff as well, the vengeance against the Horde. But genuinely, I just overall prefer the Alliance from, the visuals of it, the art, and general the feel of the faction.
Yeah, the aesthetic. I've heard that a lot. The aesthetic point of view for a lot of people tend to gravitate more to the Alliance, and you're not the first to say that, actually.
Yeah, cause honestly, if it was from a gameplay perspective, I'd probably want to go Horde, because the PvE ratios on Horde are overall better. However, I've just stuck with Alliance, mainly because I don't want to ever change from Worgen. I've considered it so many times, even staying Alliance and like going to Human, because the transmog is so much better, but I've always been like, no, I will stay as a Worgen. So that's also keeping me on Alliance, because there's no Worgen on Horde, at least for the time being.
Yeah, we don't know what will change in the future. Even though we got a, if I can say so, like a mini Worgen.
Oh yeah, Volpera, yeah, the mini Worgen. Yeah, cute Worgen. The less savage Worgen.
Yes, well, you say that, I wonder if they are
yeah,
really
you never
less
know.
savage. That could be very, especially,
so.
and especially on the roleplay server, it will be interesting to see how
people
play
roleplay Volpera, because we don't know too much about them really.
No, not really. Okay, so Alliance, your main, what do you play?
I've always made a Worgen warrior, and that's mainly because, you know, it's obviously the first character you create. If you do, like, some people, like, they'll create their first character, they'll get to like level 20 and they'll be like, wow, this class sucks, I hate it, and then they'll either quit the game or make a new character. I stuck with my warrior all the way to level 100, and then I bought Legion and leveled up to 110, and pretty much because of that, I've stuck with him. Another big reason that I stick with my main is because Fury Warrior is actually like one of the funnest specs in the game right now, so there's no really reason for me to stop playing him. You know, we do good DPS, we're generally pretty competitive, the spec is really fun, which is probably the most important. And also there's of course the, you know, emotional attachment to the fact that, yeah, he's my first character, so I've always wanted to keep that as like my main character, and that probably won't change in the future. Unless, like, Fury Warriors are, like, nerfed to the ground and unplayable. In which case, yeah, maybe at that point, I'll, like, switch my balance druid. But for now, Worgen Warrior is going to be my main.
Okay. I'm very curious. How did you feel when the overhaul for graphics for Worgen were implemented?
I thought it was cool. It wasn't, like, super overwhelming, because I felt that the Worgen before the upgrade were, like, they weren't that bad. You know, I think the real issue, or, like, the real thing they were targeting there was, like, Worgen females and, to an extent, the goblins. Worgen males out of those 4 races were probably like the best one at the time, so they couldn't make it that much better. However, the fact that they're HD now, you know, the eyes look good, and they generally look better. The new animations, it's noticeable, and I like it. I mean, it's like after a few weeks of having the new animation stuff, you're just used to it, and that's how it is. You know, it's kind of like Warlords of Draenor. At first, like, you know, when, like, models came out, people were like, wow, these models are so good. But eventually, you're just, like, so used to them. And it's like, okay, these are the models, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you get used to it really quickly, I think. Unless you start going back to Classic, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is what it was.
Yeah. And I like the classic models in a way. Like, they have like a sense of like authenticity to them. The classic ones, I like them. I think they have their charm.
There is something to be said about it. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, how did it start for you? Because as you said, you know, you started a bit later than some of us have. How did it start for you?
Essentially, so this is always an interesting story where I didn't even like start my WoW story in WoW. I started my WoW story in like Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Essentially, the last few nights leading up to the Legion launch, I was playing a competitive match of Counter-Strike, and what happened was someone was talking in voice chat, and they pretty much blamed their lack of skill in CSGO on, oh, I've been playing too much WoW, guys. Sorry. And this reminded me of the fact that, like, years ago, before that, I saw WoW on the Big Bang Theory, and I was like, wow, that looks cool. So I played it for like a day or two. Totally didn't grasp any of the gameplay mechanics, and I quit pretty quickly after like 2 days. So hearing WoW again, I was like, oh yeah, that's that game. You know, I'll try it again. And it was all up to chance, not only in hearing that guy talk, but then I chose the Worgen starting zone, Gilneas, which is like one of the best starting zones, in my opinion at least. Because it has like a very like streamlined story. Lots of starting zones, you get past like the first 5 levels, and then you could just go do whatever. With Gilneas, you pretty much can stay on like one single story for the whole time. So they kind of held my hand through it, and it was a really good story. So I was kind of pulled into it, and you know, you get out of Gilneas after the first 10 levels, and then you have the whole world at you, and it's just it was really cool. So that pretty much is what pulled me in, and after that I was just like, this game's great, I'm gonna level up. And there were several points during the leveling process to like 100 that I actually was like almost considering like quitting, because I made the really stupid move and fell for the trap of pretty much until like about level 80 only using LFG to level. I would just stand in like an inn or like somewhere else, and I would just queue for dungeons. And once I got to Wrath of the Lich King, where I was running Utgard for like, you know, I had to run Utgard like 20, 30 times to get past that point. I was getting pretty annoyed with that. But in the end, that didn't make much of a difference because I got past it, and then I started leveling like through quests, especially in the Stipendiary and Warlords of Draenor, which was great. And at that point, I was pretty much completely sold, so I bought Legion, and yeah.
Okay. That's very interesting to hear. Did you find it very intimidating as a new player to see how many levels you had to go through before you're at endgame?
I didn't find it too intimidating. Honestly, I felt like a badass when I went to... Because I always... I think it was during Mist of Pandaria when I like first picked up the game and like tried it for 2 days. And I saw like the art and stuff and like on the map Mist of Pandaria, and I thought, oh my god, that place is so high level, I'll never be able to reach it. And I was intimidated then. So when on my like leveling experience back during Legion, when I got to Pandaria, I felt like, oh my god, I'm such a badass, I've made it. I'm such a high level. But I wasn't really that intimidated because especially with dungeons, leveling was pretty easy and like straightforward, and it would just take a while. So I wasn't particularly intimidated. Now, whenever I got onto an alt, I'm intimidated by the high level because I know that I don't feel like leveling an alt for so long, which is why I'm so excited for the leveling changes coming in Shadowlands.
That will be very interesting. We'll talk about that in a bit. Okay. Well, let's jump into the past a little bit more, because you talked a little bit about Classic, and it's quite interesting because you didn't start at Classic. So
I didn't even start in like the whole legacy phase of like talent trees and stuff. I started like way late compared to most people. Like
when
Legion.
It was already
now, obviously,
nicely
like,
done.
Yeah, by now it's obviously like I'm not like the newest player now. Like you could find someone that joined in BFA and they'd be newer than me, or even like later Legion. But I'm still, compared to most people I meet, I tend to be I joined later than most people I meet.
How was it for you? Because you've gone back into Classic. How did you experience
Classic? Basically
everything.
Classic was cool. It was a pretty great experience. I think Classic, honestly, playing it, before playing it, there was the whole hype train, and I didn't really. I kind of looked at Classic completely positively, and I didn't think of any flaws. And I think, oh my god, this is just gonna be the best thing. When I played it, there was some great stuff, but there was also some mess stuff, that I can criticize. Classic for.
What were some of the... Let's start with the positives. What did you really like about Classic?
I remember the first time I really played Classic was doing the stress test. It was the one where you could go up to level 10. And I played on the Night Elf and doing Teldrassil and just generally leveling up there. I immediately noticed some stuff that I really liked. First of all, the difficulty of enemies is, depending on the situation... but overall really good. I liked where the world actually felt like dangerous. So then this, it's kind of like a spiral, because when the world feels dangerous, you want to start grouping up with other people so that, because, I'm not like the best at the game, so getting other people to help me out, there's more of a chance of success. So I was grouping up with people all the time, making friends, talking with people, being social, and that's something I don't like completely miss it in retail because I have a guild and stuff, but you don't really get that like in the open world. You don't meet random people as much because you don't really need to group up. Now it's like, okay, you go into LFG, you find a group for the world quest if you have to, you kill the world quest, you say thanks maybe in party chat, and then you never see them again. In Classic though, I was talking with people, grouping up, and talking with them while grouping up. It was a lot more of a social experience, which I really liked. Another thing that I loved, and generally this goes past the stress test into like Classic overall, is the size of the world, like how big the world feels. Right now in like retail, the world is like much bigger than it was in Classic, obviously, because we got so many expansion zones and all that. But in Classic, the world felt so much bigger than what we have today, because no flying, obviously, except like griffins. You have to walk until level 40. And generally, the world felt absolutely massive. It was like, and that was really cool because there's like the feeling of exploration. Even though I've already played through WoW and I know these zones pretty well, even though it's the old version of the zones, there's not that much different. Nonetheless, it felt like I was exploring these zones for the first time because they were just felt so much bigger, and I was going on foot as well. There were enemies around every corner, and genuinely, going into Stranglethorn Vale for the first time was a genuinely scary experience. It was horrifying. There were horde everywhere. High-level mobs everywhere. It was scary, and I died a lot that day, but it was fun, nonetheless.
Okay. If you would have to pick up the negatives, what is something that you're like, I'm happy that we don't have that anymore?
It's too grindy. Oh my god. Yeah, I'm not level 60. I am level 46 because and as a warrior, there's a certain point. Leveling from like 1 to like 33 or so, or 36 when I got my whirlwind axe was like some of the most fun I've ever had in WoW, because at that point you're doing like level grinding on mobs like once in a while with my guide. I was using like a guide to level, but essentially you're doing like grinding not that often. You're mostly questing. You're mostly like you're doing dungeons every now and then. And genuinely, it was a lot of fun. But then you get to a point at like where I was, where it's like grind mobs. Hey, I finished grinding the mobs. I can finally go do something fun. You do like 5 quests. Okay, now back to grinding mobs. Yay, I'm done. Now go do quests. And I actually did quests at that point for a few hours. And then it was like, okay, now you have to grind mobs for the next 5 hours. And nothing makes me want to like log in yet, like less than when I know the moment I log in, I'm gonna have to go and kill mobs for a few hours to level up. I'm not just the whole level grinding part of Classic, and the general like the fact that they didn't put enough quests to U60. I think that's like one of the biggest flaws during like the leveling experience, and that's like the biggest negative for me probably. Past that though, I generally don't find any other negatives. The classes feel a lot more fun to play, like for like relative to their level. Like I'm playing a low level like 46 warrior, and his rotation is like just as good as my max level warrior on retail. You know, it's interesting. The classes are well done and lots of customization. Training is a cool thing. Game is a good bit more immersive. So I generally think Classic overall has a lot of positives, but leveled grinding and if you want to get to it, you know, obviously Classic level cap doesn't have as much as like modern level caps, which is another flaw I can give it, even though I haven't really gotten to level cap. It's an obvious thing considering how many like YouTubers at this point are being like, yeah, I'm burnt out from Classic because there's not much to do.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing from a lot of people. How do you feel about the talent trees?
Talent trees are cool. Essentially, it's good because you get like a thing every level. It's not much of a big thing, but still, it's better than getting, you know, absolutely nothing when you level up. It's just like, okay, ding, 1 level closer to max level, and then it's ding, 1 level closer to max level, and ooh, what talent am I gonna get? So I like talent trees. I think it might be cool if they reintroduce them. I don't know. It would probably be a bit like, I don't know. It'd be hard to go back to it at this point, but I prefer talent trees to the stuff we have right now for sure.
Okay, well that could be something. You know, I mean, they are constantly changing with things, and who knows? We might have it in a few years again. Okay, so let's go to more of the future, I guess. So we go from the past back to the future.
Yeah.
How are you feeling with the whole Shadowlands announcement? What are your thoughts?
Cautiously optimistic. I think many people are saying that because like I'm actually, I'd say slightly, like I'm less cautiously optimistic than other people, but mainly because I have kind of gotten into the mindset that okay, when Blizzard does WoW expansions like past Wrath of the Lich King, they do a bad one, then a good one. Bad one, then a good one. Cataclysm is the less good one. Mist of Pandaria better. Warlord's Trainer, yeah. And then Legion. Then Battle for Azeroth, and then Shadowlands. With this, Shadowlands should probably be a good expansion, I'd say. Because it tends to be that whenever they do a good I feel like this is a problem with the dev team, where they do a good expansion, and then they get all like excited, like, oh yeah, that's great, we did a good expansion. Now let's do all this crazy stuff for the new expansion. And they try a bunch of this crazy new stuff, like, oh, we're gonna make artifact weapons, but it's gonna be an amulet, and you're gonna be able to, and it doesn't work. But then they you know, they do the bad expansion, and then they look inwards and are like, okay, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work, let's get rid of it, let's do something better. And hopefully with that, Shadowlands is going to be better. Like, reading the changes they've said they're going to do so far, like a perfect example of something that I'm really excited for is Mythic Plus Cache, where you can choose which item you get. That is such a monumental change, because like right now I open my Mythic Plus chest when I do Mythic Plus, and it's like weekly disappointment, and I get people who really do it every week, and they do get weekly disappointment, because like most of the Mythic Plus caches I've opened this expansion have been disappointment, because generally it's not as good as raid gear, like unless you get lucky and get something good, but you don't get lucky that often. If I could choose which one I pick, you know, I could sim everything, pick out the item that's good, pick out the one I want. Generally, it's going to be a much like more enjoyable experience. And they've also announced unpruning. Hopefully that also includes getting rid of the GCD change to make classes feel better again. Like Fury Warrior was done well by Battle for Azeroth. Like it's better now. But like, you know, I compare playing my Unholy Death Knight or Havoc Demon Hunter between Battle for Azeroth and or Legion and Battle for Azeroth, and the difference, you know, it's so much slower now that I don't even want to like log into my Death Knight because the rotation is just so slow because of the GCD change and pruning. So I'm happy they're going back on that. Torghast, way too early to like say much on it because we don't really know much about it. But it looks interesting. Apparently it's going to be similar, like the predecessor to like the Horrific Visions in the upcoming patch. And that's good because apparently Horrific Visions are good. Like replayable content is always cool. And Covenants, again, like they haven't really told us much about these systems. It's kind of the same though with BFA, where we got like War Fronts and Island Expeditions and we really didn't know much about them. So, I mean, they could be either good or bad, I suppose. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic for those. They look cool, but you know, they could be and they could not be. So, yeah.
Has there been something that you're like, something that has been brought out recently that you're like, oh, I don't know if I like that for Shadowlands?
I actually, let me think, because that's the thing though, they haven't like actually shown us that much, which is why it's hard to say if there's anything I like especially don't like. I don't know. I hope that one thing that I'm like cautious about is if they bring back Titan Forging after getting rid of Corrupted Gear, or if they keep Corrupted Gear. That's I'd say I watched a video by Bellula recently, and he made a great point that you know, they should maybe do something unique for every patch, but definitely don't keep Corrupted Gear. Definitely don't bring back Titan Forging. Because that kind of stuff that like RNG, where you know I get the same, I kill a boss, someone gets the same piece of gear as me, but it's just better than mine for like no reason other than RNG. You know, it's frustrating sometimes. So, but past that, I mean, there's nothing I've really seen yet from Shadowlands that I've actually been like, ew, I don't like that, which is good.
that is good. That makes it, you know, at least there's some positives now. Then
honestly though, it doesn't really even like matter that much because I literally, like, before they even did like the panel like talking about like the more in-depth of Shadowlands, I saw the cinematic, I saw BlizzCon, and then I had work in like, I had to leave for work in 10 minutes, so I went on my computer and I pre-ordered Shadowlands. So yeah, it doesn't make much of a difference honestly, because like I'm gonna buy it either way.
Okay, so they have, you know, their claws firmly into you then.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you've already mentioned a little bit about the Covenants. There's a lot of stuff going on in the community, and people have already made up their minds, mostly of which Covenant they will be picking. Which one is it for you?
Yeah. In terms of my main character, I'm probably going to go Bastion, because there's a few reasons for that. Like, mainly because he's my main character. I don't really roleplay him, but I do kind of imagine that, okay, he's doing all this heroic stuff, he's raiding with his goat and stuff, he's a hero, you know, so Bastion makes sense for him in that sense. Plus, the, like, place where Bastion meets up, it reminds me a lot of the Halls of Valor. I was a big fan of that, and as a warrior, you know, that's where he goes, so, you know what, if I can have something similar to that, cool.
That's really, really cool to hear. Yeah,
and I've planned out for, like, at launch, like, my leveling order will make sure that I get to play every Covenant before I start leveling other characters. In terms of that, I got my Death Knight, who I'm going to make, whatchamacallit, what was it called? It's the one with the, death and... No, it was like... Oh, now I'm forgetting what they were called. Of all times to forget what they were called.
You mean the different specs?
No, the different, like, Covenants. Maldraxxus. Maldraxxus, that was what it was.
That one.
Maldraxxus is what I'm going with my Death Knight, because he's just been a fighter. He's the one I actually roleplay. And he's been, like, I was considering going Revendreth because extra edge, but, he's not actually, like, that's for, I have read up on them, and, like, Revendreth is, like, people who've, like, committed sins, and they essentially atone for them and stuff. So, he didn't really commit that many sins, so I was like, okay, Maldraxxus. Plus, Maldraxxus is pretty edgy on its own, so you know what? It's enough edge. Then for my, Druid, that I boosted, Metalful on, Melforon. God, pronouncing these names is a pain in the ass sometimes. He's going to go towards Ardenweald, because I mean Druid, Ardenweald kind of fits together. Ardenweald looks like Val'sharah, so yeah. Or not Ardenweald, like the zone, whatever it's called. And then for finally Revendreth, I'm gonna put my rogue, who I haven't even finished leveling, but I probably finish leveling him in the Shadowlands pre-patch, Dunarik, into Revendreth, because rogues generally, they're the people who do shitty things, so I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Playing as a rogue myself. Okay, you've already said a bit about the leveling experience and everything like that, so we're getting a big overhaul in Shadowlands.
Oh my god, I'm so excited.
Is that some like one of the reasons for you that you're like, okay, I want to start from the beginning? I wouldn't mind creating a level 1 alt or a level 20, depending.
Oh my god, I'm so happy with
races.
it. Because
how come?
I've always wanted really to have more alts. I've always wanted to try out every class and try out as many races as possible. I've done I think several times, at least 2 or 3 times, where I'd start leveling up every character of every class that I don't have on a server, and I'd make a bunch of characters and I'd be like, okay, I'm leveling them, and I'd start leveling them slowly. I think on Emerald Dream actually at one point I had a character at level 20 at every class. This is before Allied Races came out. So I was spending a lot of time leveling them. Of course, the problem with modern leveling is that it's before Shadowlands at least, is that it's boring. It generally isn't that interesting, and it's just kind of a mindless thing that I really don't enjoy doing. So I never have really gotten a character leveled up since then from start. The only character I think I've ever actually gotten to max level without boosts or Demon Hunter starting at 97 is my main. So I think that goes to show you how much I don't like the modern leveling, because even though I want to do it, it's just I have really struggled with that, which is why the sound of, okay, you only you choose one expansion, you do that, and then boom, you can do Shadowlands, and then you're max level. That sounds amazing. It's Battle for Azeroth leveling experience, Legion leveling experience, Warlords of Draenor, Mist of Pandaria. I actually enjoy leveling for all those expansions. So being given the opportunity to, level in those expansions and then be done, essentially, after I do Shadowlands, it means to me that I'll be able to actually reach my goal and start leveling up much more characters to max level. And enjoy doing it, maybe even as well. So it's really great. So that's probably one of my favorite features, honestly, with Shadowlands so far, because it means I'll actually be able to have a decked out character sheet of 120 or at that point level 60 characters.
Nice. So with the leveling overhaul and you being so enthusiastic, do you if you plan it a little bit, do you think you'd level certain races or classes in certain areas, or do you think, I'll just go with whatever expansion I like the most? Or
yeah, what I'm probably going to do is in terms of that, I'm probably going to level up in whatever expansion I really feel like leveling in. It'll probably be though my favorite expansions to level in, which honestly, all that would mean is I'd probably avoid, I might do Cataclysm once. I like the basic 1 to 60 kind of stuff. I might do, if I'm really feeling punitive, I might do Burning Crusade once. But past that, I'll probably mostly do, Wrath of the Lich King, Mist of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, Legion, Battle for Azeroth. Generally, I find those are the most, tailored, modern leveling experiences. That, because, you get into problems with the older ones, like Burning Crusade, where, the leveling experience is very, derivative of, classic leveling, which is, based around mobs being hard and stuff. So in the modern day, it's just okay, I'm doing this quest to kill 20 Felboars, and I'm killing them easily. Let it end. So that's why I'll probably be doing Mist of Pandaria and stuff, especially Mist of Pandaria and up, where you're getting into a lot more story-based content, where you get into a really interesting quests and storylines that are BFA and Legion are probably my 2 favorite ones because they're the most new, and they're the ones I've actually leveled through seriously, and they're really good. They got good story moments. They're interesting. The zones look fantastic. So those ones are probably honestly the ones I'll be doing the most, and that's essentially my plan, really, when it comes to leveling alts. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Everyone seems to be leveling at a different way and make different plans, so that's very interesting to hear. Okay, How do you feel story-wise? Because you know you are an RPer. Your story is important. How do you feel about the fact that we're getting a sort of peace at the moment between the Horde and the Alliance? How do you feel about
peace?
that?
It's interesting. There's kind of like they really need to reach a very delicate balance right now between appeasing the gameplay people. Well, it's like appeasing the people who are like, yeah, it's World of Warcraft, we need to keep the war in Warcraft, and the people who are like, no, we need peacetime because it's been so long and we're still fighting. And I think the best way to appease this really is to not remove that kind of stuff from gameplay. Like, keep war mode for sure. Maybe not justify it. And definitely what they really need to do is still keep tension between the factions, right? Because, you know, and this isn't that hard to do. The Horde could still be angry at the Alliance. You know, like, this is... you don't even have to try that hard for this. The Horde is angry at the Alliance because the Alliance, you know, like, you know, was treating them like crap for the past, you know, 25 years, like, decades, you know? So... it's not that hard, really, to justify it. And then for the Alliance, okay, the Horde burned Teldrassil. It's simple as that. There you go. So they don't really have to try that hard to justify the factions still having tensions between each other, even though there could be a peace treaty. Then they also need to pretty much do what feels like a good ending to, you know, Battle for Azeroth. Because... Battle for Azeroth really is the, like, climax or, like, zenith of the war between the Alliance and the Horde. Because technically, we've actually, like, there's never been a relative peace between the Alliance and Horde in the past. There was, you know, armistices, you know, truces and stuff, where we're like, okay, let's stop fighting, there's this big bad guy to kill, let's kill the big bad, and then we can go back to fighting. It happened at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, and even at the end of Mist of Pandaria, where they were like, Varian was like, oh, I'm not going to kill you guys as long as you're not bad. That still wasn't a peace treaty. There wasn't still an official peace. It was really just like a truce or like a stop in fighting. But nonetheless, there's never been an actual peace treaty. There's never been an end to the war between the Alliance and Horde. So if they do that, doing it in a small quest line, I'd say, maybe isn't the best idea. Maybe make it a really cool moment, like with a fully rendered like in-game cinematic, or at least like, or maybe even a CGI cinematic. But that's probably a bit too much to ask. But to make it, yeah, you never know. The only thing I'd be concerned with that is doing a CGI cinematic. They need to make like new models for all the like faction leaders and stuff that haven't been in the cinematics so far, which is probably like increases the budget a good bit. So you never know. But I'd probably like hope for like an in-game one, or at least like make it a cool thing. You know, make like parades and stuff in the cities. Like the war is over. Like actually this time. But yeah, like. They can do it well. They just need to really be careful not to, like, you know, cancel out the Alliance and the Horde and make it so, like, there's no more Alliance and Horde. They need to keep it so that if you pick a faction, you know which faction you want. You know that you don't like the other guys that much, even though there's peace. You know, they can't completely delete the Horde and Alliance dynamic, because there's no way you can do that. And it doesn't even make sense canonically, because there's still going to be, you know, normal civilians, and even the heroes that aren't going to, like, you know, be okay with the other faction. Like, Gen Greyman and Tyrande aren't suddenly, after this peace, going to be okay with the Horde. And they've actually shown that in, like, PTR broadcast text and stuff, which is good. I'm happy with that.
Okay. That's a really, really interesting perspective. I quite like that. And I like the idea of the parades. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, like kind of at the end of Cataclysm in the cinema, you see like fireworks in Stormwind. I kind of thought of that. Because, you know, if we actually do get peace between factions, that's a monumental thing. That's like one of the biggest developments in Warcraft history. Like that's the type of thing, you know, I'd expect to see on like video game news sites. Peace declared between Alliance and Horde. Because that's kind of been like a staple in like gaming of like, okay, in Warcraft, Alliance and Horde fight. So yeah, it would be crazy to see a peace treaty.
It would be, okay.
Like, imagine you put like someone in 2004, like you show them a vision. Here's 2020 Alliance and Horde peace treaty. They would like be shocked.
I wonder if we would still have that many players. And all
yeah.
That, and all. Okay. What has the Warcraft community meant to you?
Ooh, this is an interesting one. Because a lot has happened since I last went on this podcast. I see the Warcraft community. I have mixed feelings on it. So essentially, like, I've had mixed experiences. So not taking into account the like basic like WoW players who you never really meet or interact with. You know, the people like you just randomly bump into in LFG that you don't really interact with. talking about the people I've actually met and like the communities I've actually been part of, in particular, I'd probably point to like the Emerald Dream community, because that's the one I've by far like the most interacted with and like, you know, been a part of. I've met some really good people, like I've met like people in role-playing guilds that were just so great, so good to be around, so positive. I've met raiding guilds that were just so, like, I remember I was in this guild called the Salty Spittoon, and shout out to them. It's unfortunate the guild, like, collapsed after a bit because of, like, not really, like, just the GM had personal problems, but that guild was so funny, like, just being in voice chat with them, I was, like, laughing at their jokes, like, all the time. It made raiding so much more of a fun experience, and that's just, the type of stuff you want to have in, like, WoW, where you just have a group of, like, people you can just generally enjoy being around. And I've had that a good bit. There's guilds I've been in where I've really enjoyed the company I had. I've made really good friends, you know, people that I legitimately consider friends that I really like talking with and, you know, playing the game with. So yeah, there's been a lot of positive. On the other hand, though, especially on, like, Emerald Dream, which is a server known for, like, having some toxicity issues, I've met a lot of bad people as well. I've met, like, people, there's, like, different levels, though. I've met people who are very, just generally toxic. Like, people who, like, I've met people who, like, pretty much one of their main goals in the game is to just piss as many people off as possible. And, like, make people unhappy. And those guys are assholes. But luckily, they're far and few in between. You know? And I've even, in, like, in WoW, in the past, like, a year or so, I've had, like, one of my, craziest and scary experiences in gaming, where there was this one so I'll give like a shorter version of the story, I guess, because it's a pretty long story, but it's an interesting story, where I was approached by one of my friends to pretty much take over a guild as co-GM, and I was essentially, this guild was a big guild, but they had to disband the entire guild because a group of people were threatening to dox, like, everyone in the guild. And
oh god.
Yeah, and we knew that they had the capabilities of doing this, so the guild was disbanded, and I took over, like, I took over as co-GM. One of my good friend of mine took over as GM, and trust me, that's only the start, because while in this guild, we were essentially it was all very raw, and we were still, like, angry at them for doing this. So essentially, we kind of made, I don't know if it was the best decision, but we essentially, this one person who did this, led this, like, pretty much threats against us, I won't name them, we killed them at a RP event in Booty Bay. And after this, things, like, spiraled out of control, where a few days later, they got my personal Instagram and said they were trying to dox me. A few months, weeks later, they got my real name, they got my guildmaster's home address, a bit after that, and luckily, that was the end of it for a while, but then, even, like, a month or two later, my guildmaster got swatted, and that was the end of that guild.
Wow.
So, yeah. And that was pretty scary, and that was, like probably one of my worst, like, experiences in gaming with, like, you know, online interactions. So that's why I have more mixed feelings now on the WoW community.
I can imagine. That sounds really scary.
Yeah. It was a pretty crazy experience, but yeah. It makes for an interesting story, though, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, and at least I guess it makes you more wary of
the
future
sure.
with things. So
yeah, I am a bit more weary now, you know, with people, but, like, not by too much, though, because I know that still, like, that's a very rare occurrence. You know, most people in the WoW community aren't even close to that bad, so yeah, but I am more careful, though, definitely online, because, like, not during that, there was other stuff that, like, taught people to be more careful, like, one of these guilds I was in, who didn't even, like, really have to do anything with the drama, a guild called Toolsource Marines, their Discord was spammed, just because I was in it, so that pretty much taught people all across my server to, like, put, like, spam protection in their Discord servers and stuff, so, you pretty much it made everybody a lot more cautious, for sure, and to, like, also hide your stuff on social media. Like, I was a lot more careful after that, you know. So,
yeah, and I think everyone should really watch out with what they put online anyway.
Oh yeah, for sure. Putting my Instagram account on, like, on one of my WoW profiles was something that I definitely now regret doing and I will not do again. But yeah.
But I think that's actually, that story makes for a good warning to anyone listening, you know, because I think it's the small things that you just don't realize, like, oh, actually they can find a lot of information from you on the internet.
Yeah,
if only just with things that you say.
Yeah, for sure. It's like always be careful. Like I always say, like when you're going, make sure like a good thing to always do to make sure your like security is okay. Because sometimes it's like incredibly simple. Just search up your name in Google, like search up your like gamer name or whatever. Like I'd search up like Jordrend. See what comes up, and see if from what comes up you can find any personal information. Because like all I had to do was search up Jordrend. I could see that profile I put up like years ago, and see that my personal Instagram's attached to it. Then I could have logged in and removed it, and then that wouldn't have happened. You know, same goes for my guildmaster. He could have, you know, gone on whatever, I think it was Facebook, and saw that his home address was available and easy to find, and could have removed it. So it's always like taking precautions like that. That's always a smart thing to do on the internet, because you never know who you're gonna meet. You never know. You know, when you start beef with someone and you think it's just some, you know, it's not that big of a deal and it's just some fun, and then boom, they're trying to like post your real name on Twitter. You know, that's where it starts. So you gotta really be careful with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go to the final 2 questions. So this is a new one. What's your favorite in-game food?
Yeah, I probably have a bit more like to say about this than most, because I think in-game food is like a simple thing. Like, probably, I'd have, like, honestly, I might pick, like, 2 options, if that's fine. Like,
yeah,
probably would be a tie. 2 foods. Bear Tartare, which is the in-game food that, during Legion, gave you a 70% speed boost whenever you killed an enemy. It was, like, the best thing ever, because I could farm mode instances and do it really quickly, which is, like, who doesn't want to do that? And it was super great. I don't know why they removed it, you know. Hey, bring it back in Shadowlands, and I'm like, I'm playing that for sure. But yeah, it's a shame they removed it, but I had so much fun with that food. Like, who knew a food item could give you, like, make the game so much more fun? But yeah, one of the best things. And then, I'd say probably beer-basted boar ribs from, which is like a level 5 dwarf starting zone quest. And you make the beer-basted boar ribs in the game. But my reason why I like it so much is because I own the WoW cookbook, and I cooked the recipe in real life, and suffice to say, it was really good. And that combined with the fact that whenever I play a dwarf, I get the quest and do it, makes it, you know, probably like the most memorable food item for me in the game. So, yeah, probably beer-basted boar ribs, and bear tartare would be like tied for my favorite.
That's really cool. I hear a lot of people praise the WoW cookbook.
Yeah, it's great.
That's really good to hear. Okay, so let's go to the final question. And since it's so long, I think we can do this one. So, Jordrend, I need to know what your whisper is, and for those new or who have no idea what whispers are, it's a failed experiment, really. So, whispers, based on the title of the podcast, can be anything. It can be a wish that you might have for the game, for the future, or game mechanics you want implemented or changed, or theory crafting about the story. Anything, really. Anything that you have to say about the game. So what's yours? I
remember, just to say, like, the first time I went on this podcast, I, like, when you got to the Whisper of War part, I, like, was like, wait, what? So I totally, like, improvised. This time, though, I actually, I knew when I was going in, like, okay, now I know I could actually choose my Whisper in advance. So, my Whisper is, N'Zoth is just a pawn of the Void, and in the end, the Void will be much more of a threat to us than anything ever before.
Oh, I'll be looking forward
especially
to that,
without Sargeras defending us, or trying to kill us all to defend us.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. I'm really looking forward to any news that we get from the Void and things like that. So.
Yeah, that'll be like the after Shadowlands expansion, because after Shadowlands we'll probably do another, like, you know, down to earth, you know, lesser expansion, and then we'll go like fight the Void in like space and stuff, maybe.
That would be cool. I quite like it, because, you know, also at a certain point you're like, well, they can't discover anything more on Azeroth.
I would like to see like more stuff in space, but only because like Shadowlands is like the first thing since like really Argus that we've like really, you know, gone off-world and kind of gone into like these whole totally new, completely crazy looking stuff, and I think that's really cool, and there's a lot of potential there, right? You know, Nyalofa actually kind of banks on that. Looking at like art and stuff of Nyalofa, the final raid of BFA, it looks pretty alien, you know, otherworldly, and that's the kind of stuff I like to see. Don't get me wrong, Zara's Eternal Palace looked pretty good, Battle of Dazara looked pretty good, you know, Uldir, but Nyalofa looks by far the best out of all of them, because it just looks so unique, you know, it really makes you go, wow, and that's what I think we could see if we go, you know, more off-world in future expansions.
Okay, I completely agree with that. I would look forward to something that's more off-world. Okay, so Jordrend, thank you so much for being a guest yet again. If people want to find you, where can they find you?
You can go to my Twitter. Well, pretty much go into Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch, and just search up Jordrend, and you'll find me. I used to have a problem where like I'd have different usernames for every platform, but now I've just changed it all to Jordrend because it's easy, it's simple. So yeah, just search up Jordrend on Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube, and you can find my YouTube where I post videos like once in a while, my Twitch where you might catch me streaming if you're like very lucky, or my Twitter where I'm actually pretty active. So yeah, probably the best one to go to would be Twitter. So yeah.
Perfect, and I'll make sure that gets all put in the show notes anyway. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Maybe I'll come back in another year.
You know what? We'll make it a tradition.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed that interview. It was lovely talking to Jordrend again. So we'll have to make this a tradition, like said. Let's go to Twitter, and I asked the question, how are you guys experiencing 8.3? And unfortunately on EU we've had some disconnects. I don't know if that's the same for the Australian servers or Oceanic, or the USA servers, but yeah, the European ones we had to restart several times over the week, so it was a bit of a bummer, but it's I guess needed, otherwise they wouldn't do it. So yeah, how have you experienced 8.3 so far? Are you enjoying it? Anything you've done first, or are you leveling something new like a Vulpera or a Mechanome? So this is what you guys said on Twitter, and just follow at whispers_of_war to give your answers. But this is what you guys said. So Chad said, it's sort of tedious and a bit long opener quest, but I like the story and revisiting Uldum and Pandaria. I agree, it's long, but not a bad long for me, at least. And I do like it that we're visiting old areas. I have to admit, when I went into the Vale and hearing the music, I kind of wanted to start leveling in Pandaria again. So I can't wait for the leveling changes to take place. Tarly said, visions are cool, Vulpera are neat, dailies are boring, and a lack of ability to skip the intro is a major downside. Very tedious. I've heard that before. I have not done it on an alt yet, so yeah, I can imagine it's a bit tedious. The Chaotic Good Girl said, race changed my main to a Vulpera, enjoying the sounds and animations that come with that race. Surprisingly glad to be back in Uldum and enjoying rare and cash hunting. Okay, cool. I think the rare hunting is starting to get a bit tedious for me at the moment. Frasley said, I wish we had a scenario skip for alt, going to level a Mechanome soon, and I'm having a blast. I am not surprised you're rolling another gnome. Archmage Annabelle Lee said, having a blast so far. Haven't made much time for alts or anything. I've been having a good time on my main. I wish I was leveling the new races. I want to wait for the new leveling systems. Either way, great time so far. Yeah, I'm with you with the leveling system. I want that changed already. I was hoping it would already be changed. I did hear somewhere, but correct me if I'm wrong, that leveling is already a little bit easier. I don't know if that's true. Crazy Guy 81 said, yes, I'm enjoying 8.3. The only issue I have is hoping to tag an NPC before Alliance does. To me, it would make sense if you have a small zone and lots of peeps on both sides eliminate that so all can help. But that's just me. Other than that, I'm having fun. Yeah, I see your pain. Oh, I'm so going to ruin your name. I'm sorry. Deacon or Deacon of the Horde said, intro questline was running around old areas and doing bonus objectives. Visions are interesting. Corruption is a mess, not my favorite patch by far. You know what? I've actually seen a lot of people criticizing the corruption bit, so that's going to be interesting. I wonder what the longevity will be for this patch. Really wonder what people will say in a while. Jackie said, I'm having a blast leveling a Vulpera Hunter, new zones on my main, and the possibility of new mounts is awesome. And I love watching Anduin punching Raffian. Too cool for words. Yeah, that was a very good video. Gwendok Iris said, I think they made this patch for me. Praise Nazoth. We shall all praise our tentacly overlords. Nick said, Volpera and Worgen questlines were fun. That's all I've done so far. Fair enough. Kuno, who has a little icon or an image of a Volpera as a user icon, so I might have a hunch what happened there, said, content-wise, it's been alright, just like the patch before. I found myself busy with more things to do than time allowed, so all good on that front. It's just all the bugs, disconnects and failed logins, resulting in missing resources that are time-gated. That sucks. Yeah, again, I see this a lot coming up, so it's a bit sucky, but hopefully they've all ironed those bugs out now. So that's what you guys said about the new patch. I still have a lot of catching up to do. I guess that's the great thing of being sick. You can catch up a little bit just by playing it very, very slowly now and again in between. But yeah, we'll just have to see what this patch will bring. And like I said, I need to watch some YouTubes because I'm totally lost of what to do. I don't even know where to find Thrall to kill him. So yeah, we will have to see about that. Anyhow, thank you guys for being so patient for a week. I have lots of interviews lined up, so hopefully if the illness stays a little bit like this, I can do more podcasts. So yeah, fingers crossed, right? Anyhow, if you want to be part of the show, you can find me in the following ways. Go to whispersofwar.podbean.com if you want to find the old shows and the show notes. Join us on Discord. Go to dragonpoweredstudio.com/Discord. Or, of course, at Twitter. That's probably your best bet. At whispers_of_war. Or my personal one, which is McMonkeys with a Z. Email whispersofwarpodcast@gmail.com, and twitch.tv/McMonkeys with 2 Zs. Yeah, that's it. If you want to be an amazing guest, just give me a prod on any of those, and we'll make this happen. And that's it. So have a lovely time in patch 8.3. I hope that things will iron out for all of us, and that we'll all enjoy it again. Before we can focus on Shadowlands. So yeah, I'll see you all next week. Bye bye.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.